Good morning, everyone. It's so great to see you all today. Thank you for joining us for this session of our Personal Finance Conference for Teachers. We're so excited. If you've been participating all morning, thank you so much. And today, for this session, we're so excited to have an incredible lineup of women. I'm here to talk about their experiences with their careers in finance and ways that we can potentially encourage more girls to consider a career in finance. I know my first career was in corporate finance, and I was often the only woman at the table and sometimes the only woman at the event. We need to do better in encouraging our smart young women to enter these lucrative, stable, wonderful variety of careers. So my name is Julie Weaver, and I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland Council on Economic Education. And with us today, we have Karen Gibbs, who is from the Gibbs Perspective and a noted financial journalist. She'll be leading our panel of ladies this morning. With us, we have a group of women who represent various fields in the financial career. We have Liz Monty, who is with APG Federal Credit Union and will be representing the perspective of women in banking and credit union careers. Angela Lynch is with us with the SC&H group, and she will be representing the accounting audit perspective. We also have Tammy Counts. Good morning, Tammy. And Tammy is a State Farm Agency owner, so she can speak to being a business owner as well as the insurance industry. And then Victoria Brown is with us as well. And Victoria is with McKinsey, and she can speak to careers in corporate finance and private equity and management consulting. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Karen to lead us off. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you for the participants and those that are very interested in women in finance and following those career paths. So without further ado, I want to ask, let's start with Liz. How did you get there? What are your job responsibilities?
Thank you, Karen, for the opportunity, and as well as Julie and MCE. It's great to be here. I am Liz Monty. I'm Financial Education Director at APG Federal Credit Union. You asked me how I got where I am. A little bit different route. I've been in banking since 1984. Actually, I put myself through college by working at a financial institution. And I have an elementary education degree, but ended up in the banking world, and I have been there ever since. And I've held different roles. And the last one right now is the director of the financial education department.
Thank you. Angela, how about you?
So my career path started in college for the most part, but when I was in high school, I really realized that I really liked numbers, and I realized that I wasn't exactly interested in math as a specific, but more as like numbers in general. So then when I went to more like statistics and kind of grouping of numbers, so when I went to college, accounting seemed like a good fit for me. Went to the University of Maryland, and then I went into public accounting from there. And I've been working in the auditing field now for almost 15 years, and I'm a partner over at SC&H Group, which is a large regional firm in the Baltimore area.
Thank you, Angela. Victoria, you're at a global management consulting firm. How did you manage that?
So I was involved in the Academy of Finance in high school. I always loved math, but I think I wasn't really as excited about numbers for the sake of numbers. I kind of always wanted them to have some sort of real world application. So studied finance, statistics, and math in college, graduated from Penn in 2019, and interviewed and joined McKinsey that fall, and have been there for a few years. And then we'll be transitioning out of the firm soon to a role in private equity.
Wonderful. We'll be excited for you. Tammy, how is it to be a business owner? And did you start with the insurance company?
I actually did a couple things out of college in management, and then pretty quickly, by the age of 25, I started with State Farm. At the time, you actually had to work for the company for at least 3 years before you could become an agent, and I ended up working for the company for about 5 years before I thought I was ready to take on that opportunity. So I've been an agency owner for the last 20 years, and it's been great.
What type of barriers, Tammy, did you encounter on your road and your journey?
So really the only barriers I would say are the barriers that I placed on myself. So it was really self-confidence and thinking, that I could handle this. Being a business owner, counseling people on their finances and their insurance. So I actually looked at the opportunity before, after I was working for the company for 3 years, and I decided I wasn't ready. And like I said, that was really kind of a confidence issue. So I looked at it again a couple years later, and then I was ready. And I'm just very grateful to State Farm that they recognized that, okay, this is a person that can be successful with our company. She just wasn't ready yet. And I was, still in my late 20s. So, so after, when I was around 30, 31, that's when I became an agency owner.
Thank you, Tammy. Liz, did you find barriers that you had to surmount?
I did. I actually, I come from a very humble beginnings. I'm from Puerto Rico, and my mother moved to the U.S. when I was 13. We came to the United States with nothing. I remember we had garbage bags full of clothes, and that was it. So, and I was the oldest of 4 children. So one, language was a barrier. Second was finances and not having the direction on what it was that we needed to do. But we had a very strong mother who always made sure she reminded us the importance of education. And we were very determined to succeed. And I was very blessed and fortunate to start working at a bank, actually a savings and loans, when I was 18 years old, and that was the beginning of a career I never thought I would have. And I've been very fortunate to work there.
Thanks, Liz. Angela, how about you? What are the types of barriers that you had to surmount? And particularly looking at the taxing and the auditing, that's a really male-dominated field.
It absolutely is. And it was when I started, for sure, within the firm that I'm working at now. And I've been there for about 13 years. One thing that led me to this firm was that after spending a couple years at a different firm, was that there were some women in leadership at SC&H Group, and which was something that I was looking for. One thing that I definitely struggled with along the way were my internal struggles more so as well, similar to Tammy, not just with confidence though for me, but more so figuring out how I could continue with my career and succeed at my career, but also then I thought at the time that I would need to step back to have a family, but I realized that that wasn't something that I needed to do. It was just kind of rearranging the way I was looking at things. So that was a big struggle for me a few years back when I first got married and started having kids, and now I am pregnant with my 3rd. So this is definitely something that I feel like I am succeeding at, both with family, but personal life, and also with my career.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Victoria, how do you deal with the work-life balance, especially in a very intense company such as McKinsey?
That's a funny question. So I think it's sort of about like carving out your barriers and figuring out like what are the most important things for me. So for me personally, like I do work at a pretty intense job, and so that typically means that it's difficult for me to like go out or socialize with my friends during the work week. But I'm willing to sacrifice that because my weekends are really important to me. And I rarely do work over my weekends, and other folks feel differently, where they like to sort of space out their work weeks a little better. And sometimes they'll go out for drinks or dinners during the week, and they'll do some extra works in the weekends. But I think one of those things is defining what it is that you want. And then the second thing is communicating with your team. So though McKinsey is a really intense place, I think that one of the great things about the firm and the direction that we're heading is people are sort of like realizing the importance of work-life balance. And so there's been frequently conversations about what it is you can manage and like how you need to balance your life. And so people are often able to communicate that with their teams.
Thank you. So this is a question I have for all of you, because women are 50% of the population, if not a little bit more so, but we're so sorely underrepresented in the financial services arena. In fact, Janet Yellen is the first woman to hold the Secretary of the Treasury position in the history of this country. She's also the only woman that's ever been chairwoman of the Federal Reserve Bank. Why is it important to have women represented in the business and financial arena? Liz, I'll start with you.
That is a great question. And I think the reason why it's important to have women represented in finance is we really need role models for our younger generation for them to understand and know that, yes, they can achieve the goals that they want to achieve, and they can hold high positions in the financial industry. Also, the women are the largest consumers, right? So we have to make sure that we understand the importance of managing our money, how to handle our money, and educate other women, be mentors to other women on money management and handling finances.
Thank you. Angela, how about you?
So I think it's very important. I think that our ideas sometimes as women are, sometimes we think a little differently than men do about certain things, and we can kind of implement that into communication and implement that into our actions a little bit differently as well. So I think we can all learn from each other, and we can take what the men have to say, and the men can take what the women have to say and how we would potentially implement it. And then that way we have both sides to it. And then that also then, as Liz mentioned, opens it up for other women to then feel more comfortable in the arena, in the financial arena as well.
Victoria, do you find that to be true, that if you have role models, that it's easier for you to navigate the situation?
I do, especially just because I think that there are small, almost minuscule moments that happen in a work situation where without having a sounding board, whether that be just somebody who looks like you or somebody you feel comfortable with or somebody who's been through it before, it can be really tricky to sort of navigate those moments. And that, as I've seen with like my colleagues or close friends of mine, can make it really difficult when things like you want to like get a promotion or when you want to transition to a new role. And so those mentors end up being, and sponsors as well, end up being super critical as your career progresses.
Thank you, Victoria. Tammy, how about you, particularly in the insurance arena? It's a customer service type relationship. And there have been some studies, in fact, McKinsey did one in 2018 that says that women offer a lot of customer connections and even employee connections. Do you find that true in the State Farm?
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting because women make a lot of the financial decisions in families that I think people don't realize that, but women more and more are making the financial decisions or they're very involved in the financial decisions. So I think it's important for women to be educated on finances in general, insurance, and as far as role models, yes, it's great to have women role models. I'm kind of thinking back to my training 20 years ago, but there was a couple women in my training group, and we're still friends today because it is a different, we have different experiences than men. So it is nice to have women mentors as well.
Stay with you, Tammy. What types of lessons did you learn, and on your way, how much encouragement and support did you get, and how can we offer that to young women today?
I got a lot of encouragement and support. I was lucky to have a woman as my manager and assistant manager when I first started. And they were, they were closer to retirement age. So they had been in the business for a long time. So they kind of knew what we needed as young women getting into the business. So that was actually really great.
Let me go back to you, Victoria, because you're coming in the business. For some of us are mid-career or maybe late career. What type of encouragement would you offer and support for women trying to enter the arena of business and finance?
It's tricky. That's a tricky question to me, because I don't think that at my role, like at my state, I don't think I need encouragement. I think I need access, like folks need access. And so like telling you can do it is not as important for me as like, what is the steps that you need to do to go from here to there? And that is what was important for me personally. And I think that's what a lot of my like female role models and mentors gave me, which is like, here are the things that you need to say, and here's like what you can't say. And here are the things that like you need to put on your resume, and here's the things that like if I were you, I might avoid. And I think that sort of like dialogue and like that mentorship was for me at least like more important than encouragement. I think like as I've gotten further in my career, or I guess I'm not far, but as I've had some of those conversations, I think that just validating that some of the experiences that I've had are not necessarily like out of the ordinary. I think that's been important. But I think language matters, right? And so I don't know if encouragement is the way that I would do that.
Okay. Angela, would you look at encouragement or support in a different way?
So my experience has been different. It's been more of not necessarily a mentor for myself, but a group of like-minded women that I've been friends with within the firm and then outside of the firm. And we've kind of grown together along the way and helped each other, I feel like, succeed in our career path. So there was some mentoring of peers in there as well. And now that I am in the position that I'm in, I do have some younger females who come to me with questions. And I do believe that Victoria is correct. I think it's not necessarily the encouragement, because I'm all there for the encouragement, but they have more questions about how do I do this? What can I say? How should I say it? And those types of questions that have really opened my eyes. And I think back to then when I've been talking to my peer group and how we navigated those areas as well at that age, or as we've grown in our careers as well.
So we're saying that it's very important to know the jargon, the protocols, the how does they say in the military, the rank file, who you go to. It's very important in building relationships as well, Angela?
Yes, I would agree with that. Absolutely. That you want to make sure you're building the right relationships at the right time, and that you are interacting with everyone in the appropriate way. And most of it does, I think, come naturally at times, or more naturally over time. But I think, as Victoria mentioned, it is something that the younger population of females is looking for us to help them with as well.
So going back to you, Victoria, what are the things that we should suggest young women who are considering a career in business finance? What types of opportunities should they take advantage of?
Okay, so that's also tricky because finance is so wide.
Yes.
And so I would I've had folks come to me who are like in high school and try to think about like, I'm interested in finance, where should I go? And I think that the way that I typically think about answering that question is using like two pieces of framework. So one is like, what is the type of intellectual work that you enjoy doing? And then who are the type of people that you enjoy doing it with? And so for me, I joined consulting because like structuring and thinking about problems is something that I'm really passionate about and that I'm very naturally good at. And then secondarily, like I really enjoy working with people who work at a fast pace because like, I'm a little impatient. So like, I think that I work well here. And I think for other folks, like people really like having the ability to have better work-life balance. And so I think that shifts like where you might want to place yourself. or there's other folks who it's really important to them that they're building something or that they're engaged in entrepreneurship. And so I think that when somebody says like, where in finance should I go? The question is like, what do you enjoy doing and how can you funnel your passion into finance and business? Because there's so many different ways that you can go about it.
Thank you for that, Victoria. Tammy, coming back to you, there are so many opportunities in finance. How did you focus in on insurance?
Well, I was kind of lucky. My father was a State Farm insurance agent. So that was kind of, I kind of grew up with State Farm. I was, would talk to agents all the time. I actually did not think I wanted to be a State Farm agent though. After working in my dad's office, just kind of part-time in high school and college. And I just, I was like, I do like math, I like numbers, but I wasn't doing like all the fun stuff. I wasn't talking to the customers. I wasn't, putting together plans for people. I was kind of just doing paperwork. So, but I still was interested in business and owning my own business. That's the part that really, that was the interesting part to me. So once I went through college, and then, like I said, I worked in a couple different industries after college. And then I was like, I'm just going to take a look at the State Farm thing again. It's a great opportunity to own your own business. And I think I kind of grew a little bit after college and realized this is, a wonderful opportunity. And because I got to work in the insurance industry in a different capacity for 5 years before I actually became an agent, that was very helpful in seeing all the different aspects of the company and the industry.
So what I'm kind of hearing, Angela, is both Tammy and Victoria are saying something about knowing what you are and what you want out of life. Did you know very early on that you wanted to follow this career path in accounting?
No, not necessarily. I definitely thought that I wanted to be in business. I thought that was a good opportunity, that there might be a lot of open doors there for me, but I also liked math, which is sort of how I ended up in the accounting field in college. As I was leaving college, I wasn't really sure if public accounting was for me. I interned for a national firm. That wasn't for me. That wasn't I just wasn't of the same mindset, I felt like. So I went to a smaller firm first, which again was not really where I wanted to be. So I found something in between. And it was really the people that worked there and the people that I met there that really made me interested in staying there long term and in building my career there. And over the years, I have had opportunities within that same firm to do different things. So at times, yes, I'm an auditor. That is my title. I'm an audit partner, but I've worked on some consulting engagements. I've also worked on some buy-side financial due diligence for mergers and acquisitions. So I have had a lot of experiences over the years to kind of determine where I wanted to head or what I wanted to dabble in if I thought about it along the way. So that was really helpful.
Thanks, Angela. Liz, how about you in terms of all of the opportunities in the financial service arena, particularly credit unions, financial services? What would you encourage young women in, and so how would you support them?
That's a loaded question, right? Because there's so many opportunities within the financial industry, and me personally, I didn't start out in banking or finance. I started out thinking I was going to be a teacher, elementary education teacher, that just ended up in finance. I've done many roles from business banking, being the vice president of the business banking division, to branch manager, to all kinds of different areas in the financial education, and even dabble in the insurance area. So I think as individuals, whether young women or young men, we're developing and we're changing. And we need to ask ourselves, where's my fit? And I like what Victoria had shared. You have to make sure that you ask yourself those questions of what you would like to do, or where you fit the most. Do internships, and Angela alluded to that. If you have an opportunity to do an internship somewhere, do it, so you see if it's something that you like or do not like. There's nothing worse than having a degree in something that you completely are not going to do. Now I can tell you financial education is exactly where I should be. It actually brings the education piece as well as my passion for teaching people about the importance of managing their money better. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes myself, and it's great to be in a position now that I can help others.
Thanks, Liz. You know, before I became incoming chair for Maryland Council of Economic Education Board of Trustees, I was a financial journalist on television and got my start on a cable television station that actually didn't exist 30 years ago. So there are going to be jobs 30 years from now that don't exist today. What types of skills do we need to impart with young women so that they can be prepared for whatever? And I'm going to come back to you, Victoria.
So if I think about the last few years that I've had, I think that I probably, if I say like the most important things I've learned, it's probably nothing technical. Like, I don't think it's that hard to teach yourself how to like model. Like, a lot of it's math. You can learn it on YouTube. But I think that the important things that is a lot tougher to teach are soft skills. Those are things like, how do you communicate up and down? So how do you manage the folks up so they understand what you're doing? And then how do you delegate well enough and communicate what you need to do well enough with folks that you're managing so that that works? I think it's like, how do you like work like project management? So like, you know, when the meeting is, how do you work backwards with everything you need to do and effectively time it so that like when you get to the project, it's done? How do you like take and receive feedback? So McKinsey has a very intense feedback model where you are literally forced to give feedback to folks above you, but which forces you to learn how to deliver feedback in a way that is productive and that also won't like harm your working relationship with that person. And then also like, how do you structure your thoughts and think on the fly? And those are things that I think that I've pulled out in the last 2 years. And I think that if I went anywhere, having those soft skills would really be helpful and allow me to like learn quickly and move in any environment. Because if you're smart, like you can learn the actual technical skills.
That's a great point. Soft skills are so important, and we seem to be losing them in this area of technology where everything is done by computers or machines. Tammy, how important are soft skills to you?
That's what my answer would have been. I would have said time management, even leadership skills, management skills. You know, as you're moving up, you're going to be managing people, and that's a big part of your job and your success in your job is surrounding yourself with people that you are like-minded with. You know, you're similar as far as being able to get along. So yeah, I think the management part of it in my job, that's really the most important, because I have people working for me that are representing me on a daily basis. So getting the right people, training them, managing them. I agree with that.
Liz, how important are soft skills, and how can we help young women develop those skills?
Extremely important. As a matter of fact, every time I interviewed someone or look for someone, I always have had the philosophy of hire attitude and teach skills. So I'd rather have somebody that I can hire that I can see that they care, that they can prioritize, that they can manage their time wisely, that they can connect with individuals. So I will be looking for those type of skills right off the bat. The other skills we can teach, because as you know, every financial institution, every business is going to have their own way of doing things. They're going to have their own programs. There are certain things that are going to be basic, but we will teach those skills that we want them to have to produce the product that we want them to deliver. So
the one thing I forgot that I also think that is really important that I've learned, and I don't know if other folks have seen this in their separate roles, but like resilience has been really important in my role. So like when you run into a block, think like for a second and like what are the ways that you can like start convince yet, or like what are your options? And like as I've worked with clients and like seen different folks in their working styles, one of the ways that like a lot of different companies get tripped up, like across industries, is that folks and their staff aren't necessarily really good at being resilient when they like reach barriers. So I think that having that skill is probably like one of the most important things that I've seen, and as I've seen like my clients being able to like develop as well.
Angela, your comments.
I completely agree with all the soft skills comments that have been said at this point. Definitely communication and being able to communicate the feedback up and down, and not necessarily even having to do it in a formal atmosphere, but more of just on the job type work, and how you communicate things that can be going a little bit better, or things that are going really well. The positive communication is just as important as the more negative feedback as well. So learning how to communicate, learning how to prioritize and organize. And then exactly as Victoria mentioned, like thinking outside the box a little bit. Once you hit a barrier, how do you respond? And I think there is a way to at least present that to the students or to younger women, and explain that to them and get them thinking about it early on, rather than waiting till they're presented with that in a workplace setting. So I think that's really important.
Yes, there is a difference between responding and reacting. And that's another soft skill that I think all of us can learn more of. Let me ask you about this Generation Z. It is very socially conscious. They are aware of environmental issues, social issues, even governance issues. Are there any projects that you're working on or your company is working on that has the potential to improve the way we live? And I should start with you, Liz, again.
Thank you. I am very fortunate, blessed to work at a credit union whose philosophy is to make sure that we're helping those individuals that are at risk of social exclusion. So we are very involved in organizations such as Habitat for Humanity, Boys and Girls Club, and with our shelters within our community, making sure that we're providing resources and also teaching financial education and money management skills. We also have collegiate branches and high school branches. So our credit union understands the importance of being involved in our community, volunteering in our community, because it's going to impact everyone if we don't. So.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that you're also a board member of the Maryland Council of Economic Education, and thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Angela, how about you? What does SC&H Group do for the environment? Are you involved in any projects?
Absolutely. So SC&H is a big supporter of the community, and we have some different things that we do throughout the firm that we invite some of our employees to be part of, different things like Junior Achievement and Baltimore Station. We do some volunteer work there. However, then individually, they're very supportive as well. So I joined a board, I guess about 5 years ago or so. I'm on the board of Improving Education within Baltimore City Schools. And they kind of create networks and within teachers to train the teachers and teach the teachers based on what has worked for other teachers in the K-2 literacy arena. So it's been something that they started back in 2015, and that I've worked with them along the way. And they have some other projects that have come out recently because of the pandemic and how they can't actually be in the schools this past year. So they've been doing a learning in a box where they're sending materials home to students and providing YouTube videos for the parents and the students to follow along with. And SC&H has been very supportive of my work there. I'm the treasurer of the board, and I've felt like my financial background has been very helpful because I've been able to basically take this newer organization that's doing wonderful work in Baltimore City and also throughout Maryland, and help them realize kind of what their capacity limits are, and then also kind of how they can improve from a financial standpoint. And I've gotten them ready for their first audit this year and that type of thing. So my background has been very helpful, I think, within that organization, but then also I'm very engaged because of what they're actually doing. And SC&H has supported me through this the entire time.
That's exciting. Thank you, Angela. Victoria, you're a member of a global powerhouse and facing all sorts of things going on in the world. I mean, it's just not here. What are you involved in, and what does McKinsey do to make the world a better place?
So if I think about client work that I've done, that's public. So one of the things that we did right after COVID is we worked with the city of New York and like the state of New York to help think through like what are ways that we could help businesses recover from COVID, and to help think through like how financial institutions could like aid in the recovery such that the government doesn't have to like fund the whole thing. So that was really interesting thought work for me personally, because it was like a very cool way to give back. And I actually think like the report that we published is like public. So that's one. And the second thing is, I think you referenced like one of the articles that we did, but like we put out articles all the time. And so one of the things that I'm working on now with one of my favorite partners is a article about Black economic mobility and the important historically Black colleges and universities in improving Black economic mobility. And for me, that's really important. Like, not that I went to a school like that, but just the importance of making sure that those schools are continuously being funded, given their importance in our history and our like community and how they've been, I don't know, just largely driving that. Just like now that I know all of the stuff that I know about the research, like just their general importance in the state of the African American community, it resonates really well with me.
Yes, access is always important. Thank you, Victoria. Well, like a good neighbor, State Farm is always there. What are you doing and State Farm for the community?
Well, State Farm Corporate does a lot for the community. They have lots of different programs. I mean, one big thing that they do every year is called Good Neighbor Assist, where agents, employees, team members can nominate a local organization, and then they put it online, and everyone can vote on the organization that they would like to win the $25,000 grant, and they give multiple grants away throughout the country. So that's one thing that's kind of going on right now. State Farm's very involved in the Hispanic community and African American community. There's lots of charities that they're involved with there, and organizations that they're constantly helping out. As far as me locally, I do, we run a Toys for Tots program in our community. We donate to Sarah's House, which is a local shelter right down the street from us. We're involved in the schools, just doing different programs and donating money to the schools. And we're very big into supporting other local small businesses. So, just doing, if it's National Pizza Day, we'll buy pizza and for our team, and, or donate some pizzas to the community. So we're constantly helping out other small businesses in the community as well.
Well, thank you, because it's a global community, starting from this little part, from a family to a neighborhood to a state. And we really have a wonderful opportunity to have these young women participate in the financial arena and strengthen our communities. Is there one key takeaway that you would give looking back on your career and where you want to go? Tammy, I'll start in with you.
I guess a big takeaway would be just, go for it, really. I mean, just figure out what you want to do and set your mind to it, figure out how to do it. Ask questions, use your resources, definitely, continue your education. So yeah, I would just say, figure out what you want to do and don't let anything stop you.
Victoria, your key takeaway, words of wisdom?
One of my friends has this saying, like, work until you're confident. And so, like one of the things that I've thought about, like in my role, and then like when I was preparing for like interviews and stuff, is like you should continue preparing until you're in a place where you like feel confident in your abilities and like what you know. And so like I don't really like worry that I'm not going to be able to do something at work. I know that I'll be able to figure out, because I know that I feel like I put the work in order to be able to do that. And I think that confidence has really at least been important for me in order to like bring my whole self to work. and therefore be able to be successful at like what I'm doing now. Because I think that that consistent worry about like whether or not you'll be okay or whether or not you'll do a good job will really impacts like job performance, or at least it impacted mine.
Thank you. Angela?
That I've learned along the way is that never to underestimate myself. So never underestimate yourself as you go. And if you come up with a barrier, try to take a step back and think about it from a bigger picture standpoint and how to get around it. And that's been something that's always worked well for me in my career. And then also never to stop learning, even if it seems like maybe somebody doesn't want to teach you or doesn't want to always kind of field your questions. Keep going. I think that's important, persistence, and just keep asking until you understand, until you completely know what you're looking for, and just persistence.
And Liz, your key takeaway.
I agree with all the ladies here today as well. One of the things that I've learned, sometimes I am actually my worst enemy. So it is extremely important to remember that you can do what you want to do. Make sure that you look to those individuals that you admire, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask them to be your mentor. Many times it's going to take us to take that first step, and they will help us. If we ask, other individuals will help us to get to where we need to be.
I like that. I do think it is very important that we encourage and support each other and that we believe in ourselves. I started out in economics, and I can very clearly remember it was a male counselor saying, Karen, you're never going to be on the President's Council on Economic Advisors, so why don't you choose another route? And what I did was I chose another advisor that supported me and believed in me. And as I said, the job that I had as a financial analyst on television, whether it was CNBC, whether it was Fox, or most recently at Maryland Public Television, those jobs didn't exist, but I had basic skills and I had encouragement from parents, and teachers, and other women that got me through. So I think that what we talked about today was encouraging. I thank you, Liz, Angela, Victoria, and Tammy for your insights, and all of the participants in the conference today. I hope that you got something to take away from this. And Julie, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you all for providing such wonderful information. We did have a question in the chat I thought I'd address, since we just have a few minutes left before a little break before the next session. Someone asked, what suggestions would any of you give to women who want to move into corporate opportunities that have long been male dominated? And what methods might be used to break the wage disparities that we all know still exist between women and men in the same jobs? So anyone have any thoughts on that question?
I might say one thing about that a lot of times in the financial services arena, women go into the operation side. And actually, the revenue side is where the money is. It is where the attention goes. And if anything, I would suggest that women certainly try to, I mean, it's a leap. It may be, but I would suggest look at the revenue side instead of the operations side and see how that goes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I agree with that. We're owning your own business, the sky's the limit. There should be no barriers other than, what you put on yourself. So, whatever work you put in, whatever you want to do, you own your own business, you can, what your efforts are going to, indicate what your salary is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I would also say find a place where they notice that's a problem and they care enough to take steps to solve it. So like it's one thing to be like a woman in a firm that's like male dominated and like nobody at the firm really cares about that. I think that's kind of an uphill battle. But I think if you're a woman who's joining a firm who's like finance is male dominated and probably like we should do something to fix that, I think you'll find, for me, I found that it's just so much supportive, and the way that I interact with my colleagues is so much different than like my other female friends interacting with their colleagues at separate firms. So I think it really goes back to like figure out a place that is a good place to do what you want to do.
I agree with what Victoria has to say as well. I think even in a male-dominated firm, which was similar to how I came into SC&H Group, it's not that way anymore. So I think the leadership at the time was very open to females coming in. And so if I put in the time, if I put in the effort, if I was able to show that I could do the work and that I was willing to do the work and I worked however much I needed to, the work product was successful, then they were very open to having those types of conversations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think somebody asked, oh, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
No, I completely agree with what everybody has said. There's no one that has put a barrier on me saying that I cannot do a certain job. If I wanted to do a certain job, I just did my best and make sure that I sold myself and worked really hard to make sure I did what I needed to do.
Another question in the chat, we just have a couple minutes left, was many of the people attending today are teachers who are teaching high school courses and career counselors, and they want to know what recommendations y'all would have for female high school seniors who are looking at going to college to get a degree in business or finance. I don't know, Victoria, you are the most recent graduate among our panelists, so maybe you can talk about your college search process a little bit. I know you went to a very prestigious Ivy League university, but I bet your list was probably long of schools that you had on your radar.
So actually, I had a very separate approach to the college application process. I said, these are just the 5 schools. I'm going to put all my effort into just applying for those, and then I moved on. But I think that if you are a female who is interested in applying in business and finance, I would say think about what are things in finance that you are interested in and want to do, and try to find programs that have really good funnels to those sorts of things. And it might not always be it doesn't need to be an Ivy League school. University of Maryland has an excellent business school, right? And so I would say being very thoughtful about what the programs you are applying to is one. And the second thing is, it's kind of tough to say this ahead of time, but it's really just believe in yourself going in and believe in yourself while you're there. I took finance classes at Wharton where I was quite literally the only Black female for 4 years in all of my classes. And I was never concerned that I didn't belong there, because we all got in together. And so I think just being really, really confident in knowing who you are, knowing that you belong where you're supposed to be, it's something that's really important.
I would also say don't overlook the relationships that you can build along the way, from your school counselor or your teachers in high school to then making that path in college as well. So anyone you meet is a potential connection down the road that could help you learn something or move into a new position at a new company that could help you. It could be the absolute perfect fit for you. So I would definitely keep that in mind too as you're moving into the college world. And like Victoria mentioned, there's a lot of different schools that have different programs. So not only look into the technical coursework, but also look into the programs that business school might have to offer you, and how they approach their students and getting them out into the world to meet new people and to meet new companies. I think that's important.
Yeah, that's a great segue into another question that I saw in the chat, which was about internships. So I don't know if any of you can speak about internships that you personally have that introduced you to the career field, or internships that your firm offers to high school students to introduce them to the type of work that you do.
Well, if I may start with that one. Our credit union is very involved with the schools. We actually are the board of the Academy of Finance at one of the schools in our county, and we provide internships for high school students. We actually will be welcoming 2 high school students to work at the credit union this summer. We've been doing that for quite a number of years now. We also do that for community college as well as 4-year colleges. So I always say, ask, you know, a financial institution may be willing to provide summer internships so individuals can get that exposure and learn a little bit more about what it takes to work in the financial industry.
For me, I think like finding mentors who did stuff that I thought I was interested in was also really helpful, because sometimes there aren't really formal internships, but like somebody will let you come to their office and like learn a little bit about what they do 2 days a week for like a few hours. And that might be enough to like let you know if this is something you're interested in, if this is something you want to continue pursuing. And even if not, like that's another relationship you have like later on in life. So I thought that's something that was helpful for me.
Yeah, and I always try to have at least one summer intern in the office, like a paid internship. So that's always an option too, to look at what's kind of out there for just on a part-time basis, maybe just to kind of get to know the company or the industry that you think you might be interested in. Maybe working part-time over the summer is an option too.
Also, somebody asked about like understanding and like closing the pay gap between men and women. I have really close male friends who I very specifically ask what they're paid. And I explained to them why I'm asking that question. And they have it's never been uncomfortable for them. And we're young, so I'm going to keep asking you these questions as we like go through our career. So I basically just established that that's like a part of our relationship and they're okay with it. So I think like actually having like close male friends who are in your same industry is something that's been helpful.
Great thoughts. Well, we are at the end of our time. Our next session is going to begin at 11:30. I put the link in the chat. So if you all can join us at 11:30, that would be fantastic. Karen, Liz, Angela, Victoria, Tammy, this has been a wonderful session. I can't thank you enough on behalf of the council for being with us today and having these important discussions about how we can bring more women into this field and support each other as well, so that our careers can grow and flourish. So wonderful to have you, and I'm just delighted to hear the conversation today. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the teachers for attending today and listening to this information. Hopefully you received some information that you can use with your students. Great. Well, with that, I'll end the session. Thanks again, and look forward to seeing you all again as a speaker potentially in some of our classrooms or in another educational session. Thanks again. Have a wonderful day.